remember the faint smell of dusty hymnals and tea gone cold as I stood at the front of the church hall, feeling every pair of eyes on me. The ceiling, high and faded, absorbed none of the coldness in the room, every cough or mutter an accusation echoing off cracked plaster. We always gathered for the evening meetings, meals for the elderly, youth outreach, and now, apparently, the public dismantling of my ambitions. I held the letter in my fist. It was an acceptance, a coveted place in a new postgraduate program that blended artificial intelligence with molecular biology. King's College, no less. My tutors thought it revolutionary work. But in Bo, hardly anyone cared what went on in the universities. It was the real world that mattered. To my family and neighbors, science was just noisy news on TV. As Vicar Andrews invited me up to share about the future, I saw my mother's eyes fixed on the tablecloth. My little brother Tom kept his chin buried in his collar. My aunt, who had driven in from Croydon, whispered something sharp to her daughter. My father's lips moved silently, praying perhaps for sense to descend on his only girl. I cleared my throat. So, I got in. King's College. A doctorate in computational biology. I'll be developing AI that models cell behaviors to understand rare diseases. I pressed on, words tumbling. It's a pathway to curing what's incurable. I want to make things better, change lives. A scoff cut me off. Mrs. Compton, my old science teacher, sat frowning as though I'd confessed to murder. "Rubbish, Zoe," she said. "You always chattered about gadgets and computers, but the world's dying for nurses, not robots." Laughter, quick and mean, flickered through the rows. Dad spoke then. "Tell him about the cost, Zoe. You want to mortgage your soul for this? What's so wrong with a proper job?" "Why can't you teach or go into medicine?" My face burned. "Because this is what I love. This is how I help. Let me try." Mr. Bhatti, who ran the corner shop, pointed his cane. "Letting children dream too wild, that's the trouble. You'll come back broke, begging work off us." Another woman piped up. "AI's for the billionaires, love. No place in Bo for that." Had I not grown up folding Meals on Wheels leaflets, served teas at every church fete, I'd not yet left. And already London was folding in on me. Still there was a kindling at my core, a flicker of defiance against the chill. I steadied my voice. "I believe in this work. Maybe you can't see it now, but one day you'll understand." Mrs. Compton leaned into the row ahead, her mouth twisted. "We'll see, Zoe. You're clever, but clever doesn't count for much round here." That stung worse than the rest. Cleverness was all I'd ever had. Afterwards, people circled me with forced smiles, tepid congratulations wrapped in warnings. Dad just had the car keys tight on the way home, his silence pressing harder than any lecture. In my room, I stared at that letter, its promise now a distant light dulled by a fog of shame and doubt. London in October was damp, smudged with drizzle. On campus, every building bore the weight of centuries and ambition, marble plaques to discoveries that once seemed impossible. My cohort was drawn from all over the world, hungry-eyed, armed with code and data, talking shop over Pret sandwiches. The first months shredded me. Code broke across simulations. Data refused to yield. My accent marked me out. Bow vowels, clipped and unrepentant. Papers rejected. Experiments failed, some spectacularly. There were weeks where all I had was coffee and the memory of that dark church hall at my back, a spur and a wound together. Still, I pressed on, rebuilding models late into the night. My mentor, Dr. Eng, told me, "Trust the question, Zoe. Ignore the noise. You only need one breakthrough." I wagered everything on a hunch that certain rare genetic disorders could be defeated by mapping the entire cellular environment, not just rogue genes. I built neural nets that ran endless what-ifs. peering through virtual microscopes into possible futures. There were days the results glimmered, almost right. Before dissolving into failures, my student loan grew monstrous. Parents stopped phoning. At church, only Tom messaged anymore. Sometimes I rode the number 8 bus back to Bow, walking the estate at night as if I might conjure up the old certainty I'd misplaced somewhere between the exams and the sneers. But what I found was a smog of fear. I'd gambled my place in this neighborhood for a phantom chance. If it all failed, I'd be a cautionary tale, one more who had flown too close to the sun. Time blurred. 2 years, then 3. My model caught the attention of an oncology team in Helsinki after I corrected an error in their approach. Conference calls, email threads multiplying. Suddenly, my name was on a preprint. Predictive modeling of cellular microenvironments with deep AI tools. That was enough for a call from a venture fund. I spent 6 months building a real prototype, a tool hospitals could use. At 29, I had a keycard printed with my own name, the seal of a small startup, and a board of gray-haired backers so sharp they could cut steel. Still, family didn't understand. Dad would text, "How's work, Zoe? Found a cure for anything yet?" I couldn't answer that I lived in tiny rented flats and spent my time cycling between labs and cold supermarkets. Success was a movable target. I still felt on the outside of things. Then last winter, it happened. The AI flagged a potential therapy for a rare autoimmune disease notorious for its unpredictability. Juvenile idiopathic arthritis, the kind that had left Sarah Patel, a child at my old church, walking with crutches since she was 9. The computer's prediction matched a cocktail of old drugs in a new combination. We ran simulations. The Helsinki team tested it in vitro, then with patients. A handful of children walked unaided for the first time in years. Press notices started trickling in, cautious and then exultant. Times, Guardian, even TV. My name, for once, didn't sound small. It wasn't until Mum rang with news of Mrs. Compton's stroke, small, she was recovering, that I realized how far I'd drifted from Beau. She asked, voice thin, "If you have time, would you come see her?" You'd perk her up. Community's still the same, still talking. Walking back into that church hall was like stepping through a fog of memory. Same cracked ceiling. The tea now a little fancier. Older faces, some grayed, some unchanged. There was talk, but also a hush, as if they sensed something different about me. I stood by Mrs. Compton's bedside next day, the late frost stippling the hospital window. Her hand found mine, surprisingly strong. "Heard about your science, Zoe." Her fingers curled against my knuckles. "Bet it's all magic to me." I smiled gently. "Just math and code, really. But it's changing things. People are walking who couldn't before." She nodded. "Clever. I suppose clever does count after all." On Sunday, Tom messaged to say the church committee had invited me for the annual charity lunch. I nearly said no, but in the end, I couldn't resist. I wore my oldest coat, walked the familiar path across Mile End Road. My feet remembered which slabs to avoid, the places the stones gave underfoot. Inside, the tables were set out in the old formation. I glanced down, unsure, wishing I could shrink to glass. Dad waved from near the tea counter, expression fixed somewhere between relief and pride. Vicar Andrews met me at the door. "Glad you came, Dr. Simons." No one had ever called me doctor here. Across the room, I saw Mr. Botti, cane still sharp as his thumb. He watched me approach, chest braced. "Still playing with computers, eh?" he said, eyebrow cocked. A few people snickered nervously. I slid the battered case from my rucksack. Opened it on the table. 2 hospital briefing folders, my startup's tablet, a framed letter from Helsinki University. Inside, the signatures of the children who had walked unaided because of the new therapy. Among them, Sarah Patel's in crooked blue marker. I tapped the presentation. The brief video. 10-year-old girl rising from her wheelchair, braces abandoned at her side, taking tottering, glorious steps. In the background were clinicians clapping. The room fell silent as the video played out. I let the quiet linger. One by one, the older women at the table reached for tissues. Someone whispered, "She's from here, isn't she?" Mrs. Compton, propped up in the corner, nodded once. "That's our Zoe's work. That girl is from our street." I looked at my father then. He mouthed, not quite loud enough to be heard, "Well done." Mr. Body cleared his throat. "London's lucky to have you, Zoe," he said. His eyes were moist. "We're lucky." Someone clapped. Then another.